All right, are we recording? Testing, testing. Okay, great. I never know how to start these videos. It's so tough. Anyway, I'm here in central New York at Flock Finger Lakes. And as you know, I think I've said this before, I've been totally out of the loop with buying houseplants and getting new houseplants and knowing what's on the market. Just because I've been doing more outdoor planting right now. I've been doing food production and ornamental planting outdoors, and I'm just waking up again and starting to get into indoor plants because we're doing an indoor renovation, and I'm like, what are some plants that I could bring from Brooklyn to here? And maybe this is an opportunity to get some new plants that I could introduce in the meadow home, which is gonna be our tiny house renovation. And because I'm not out there shopping for plants and, seeing and scoping out what's out there, I thought I'd do these little mini series where I would talk to a buyer or a grower, somebody who's out there and actually looking at plants. And the first person that I thought to was my quote unquote plant pimp back in the day when she was at Chelsea Garden Center, Gina. And now she's at Blondie's treehouse. So she's closer to where she lives. So it's a shorter commute for her. So it's great for her. It's great for her quality of life. So she doesn't have to commute like 45 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes or whatever she commuted in order to get to Chelsea Garden Center, which, by the way, is an incredible plant shop based in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and they also have a space in Red Hook, although I've never been to the Red Hook location. The Williamsburg location is very good. Anyway, I love it. It's one of my local haunts in Brooklyn. Yeah, so I chatted with Gina, and now she's doing more buying for interior scaping, which is always very interesting too, because typically they'll be interior scaping offices and everything along those lines. And sometimes what interior scapers buy is not necessarily what houseplant enthusiasts buy for their home, but maybe there's some crossover. So I wanted to chat with her to see what she's seeing, maybe like 5 or half dozen plants that she thinks is actually interesting right now. So stay tuned.
Good.
If you hear bird sounds behind me, it's that sound. It's my doves, but I think I'll probably hear your dog too.
Yes. Yes. The dogs, the cats. You have to go lay down, Maxine. Oh, it's like a little farm over here.
I know. I had I picked up I went to get the chickens today to let them out here in Brooklyn. And I found a starling with a string wrapped around his foot and his toe was coming off, and I was like, I gotta go home, and I untied the string and his toe was half coming off, and I was like, this is so gross. And then I ran back and I'm like, I need to wash myself up before this interview. Just a normal day in Brooklyn. Tell folks how we know each other and then where you've transitioned to. And yeah, just tell me a little story about that, just so people have reference.
So we met at Chelsea Garden Center in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, probably 6 years ago, 6 years ago, I guess. And up until last year, I was the plant buyer for the Williamsburg location and the Red Hook location. So last July, I left Chelsea Garden Center after 20 plus years, and I moved to Westchester, and I am now Director of Operations for Blondie's Treehouse, which is a very large interior scaping, exterior scaping, and landscape construction company. So I'm still buying, but my buying habits have changed a lot. So whereas at Chelsea Garden Center, I was able to buy what was, kind of cool and on trend at that point, to kind of buying for commercial interior clients. So while it's really challenging, that's probably what I miss most about working at Chelsea Garden Center, is just being able to buy all those cool little plants and sharing that knowledge with the customers. But I'm really enjoying my time at Blondie's. It's a great challenge, and I'm learning a lot about the construction end of things. So it's cool.
That's great. I mean, I also think that, it's closer to where you live, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. My commute went from like an hour and 20 minutes one way to 12 minutes. So
that makes a huge difference. And
yeah. And even when your days are longer, summer, it's like that commute, that time you get back every morning and every night is just, it's game changing.
Yeah. So. Especially if you had a day where you're just like drained and then, you still have to drive like an hour and plus,
yeah.
it just, quality of life immediately goes up.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So
amazing. Well, do you still find yourself when you do go and buy, do you still find yourself kind of like peeking over of like what's trendy?
Absolutely. And I'm really thankful because my boss is a huge indoor plant nerd. So I know that if I see something really cool on the availabilities, I'm like, oh, you know what? My boss is really going to like this. I'll just sneak it right into his office. He has a massive collection of indoor plants. You'd be impressed, Summer.
That's awesome.
I am able to buy stuff if I see it. It's just, not in quantity like I used to.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, and I'm noticing so many like changes with like lots of our Florida growers now are really on board with like the rare stuff that's not necessarily rare anymore, but they're offering, all of like those really cool philodendrons like the Houseplants silver sword and gloriosum, and now there's gloriosum zebra. So it's really cool, and they're making it accessible and affordable to everybody, really, which is a really nice thing. So
yeah, that's really important. In fact, I was just curious myself, and I actually think I got distracted and didn't do this, but now I've reminded myself that I should do this. I wanted to go back into like my eBay purchases, like way back when, 6-7 years ago, when I was buying like philodendrons that you cannot get for like less than $400 now. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what did I pay for it? I'm pretty sure it was like $19, something along those lines. But I'm kind of glad that I'm like not quite in the market of purchasing right now, because I'm like, it would be financially irresponsible of me to do so. But to hear that some of the things like the philodendron silver sword or the gloriosum or this new gloriosum zebra that you're seeing are being more, I'd say, I don't know if it's mass produced, but that could definitely bring the price down for folks then.
And they're not, I wouldn't say they're mass produced, no, because they're the smaller growers down in Florida that really just deal with independent garden centers and interior scapers. So they're not producing like, thousands of them, but they have them. And, you can find a silver sword now, in a retail shop for maybe like, $65, $75 in a 6-inch pot, which is, it's great. Yeah, and that's actually really good to know that some of these kind of smaller to mid-sized growers that are actually giving a leg up to the independent garden centers. You know what I mean? Because it still might not be something. I'm like, look, you could get some when the ZZ like Black Ravens you were able to get them at like a Wegmans or your supermarket or something like that. Like that was kind of awesome, but there's still. I've gone to a lot of IGCs, a lot of independent garden centers, and I'm like, wow, they have like quite the selection. You know what I mean? It was like when you're at Chelsea Garden Center and you could actually source some of those things and you get something that's like a real gem that people don't get a chance to really see elsewhere. Yeah. Sure. So, I mean, being now that you're focusing a lot on interior scaping, there's probably plants there that maybe some folks would like turn their nose up to or whatever. But when I think of interior scaping, I think of like, sometimes you have to fill in lots of space. So are there certain plants that you see that are like maybe could be an alternative to our traditional like ficus or strelitzia? Like what are things that you're looking at like that have maybe some size to them? We want to fill spaces. We're using a few different kinds of ficus. And one of them that I really love that's underused, and well, it's probably underused because you don't see it a lot because there's not that many growers down in Florida that are growing it. It's the Ficus Amstel King. We use a lot of those, and they're really beautiful ficus trees. I think they hold up a lot better than a Benjamina. They have an elongated, wider leaf, kind of similar to an Ali.
Yeah, because Ollie's are like really sword shaped, right? Or there's,
they're
so I think
really
there's some,
narrow
yeah,
and
narrow.
skinny.
Yeah.
I don't really think they're that pretty unless they're mature. But when you're buying a Ficus Amstel King in a 14-inch or a 17-inch pot, those heads most of the time come in really full and fluffy, and they have that weeping habit going on already. So that's just one that, that's one of my favorites right now.
Have you ever seen that in like a retail shop for like somebody to be like, oh, I want something different than my my Ficus lyrata?
Rarely, because even when I was buying for Chelsea Garden Center, they were really hard to come by. And they're not super. If you can find one, if you can, ask your local retailer, your local garden center to grab you one, I would definitely go for it. They're one of my favorites. Now.
Yeah, because we are renovating a little tiny house, and I'm looking for like that one big thing, and something that has like a weeping habit like that sounds like really interesting. You know what I mean?
They're really lovely trees.
Yeah, so nice. Anything else along those lines as well, or?
So another one that's kind of like an old-timey plant that was really hard to find for a long time, is Natal mahogany, which I actually have. This one is like about, I would say like close to 4 feet tall. It's in a 10-inch pot. But these guys are awesome, and they're perfect for like an overwaterer because they cannot tolerate drying out. They like to be kept moist, almost wet. And they're really, really great for low light. So this is a winner, Natal mahogany. They have just beautiful, shiny kind of leaves. There's no plant shine on these guys right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it get any kind of like funky flower or fruit, or is it just?
I think summer it gets an orange fruit.
Interesting. Yeah. It may not be indoors, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling it's kind of like, the coffee plant kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say even like the leaf kind of looks like a coffee plant to a certain extent.
Coffee and maybe like an amate a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think it's actually though, I think that particular plant is an important medicinal, if I'm not mistaken, but
sounds familiar.
Yeah, but probably in its like native range, wherever that might be. But that looks like it could get pretty sizable too.
It does. So these are also available in 14-inch pots and 17-inch pots. The 17-inch are a bit hard to come by. Right. They can. We have some 14-inch that are about 6 feet tall in the greenhouse right now. So
do you find that the growers who grow for interior scapers are very different than those who grow for the for the IGC market and for collectors, that kind of thing, or are they the same folks?
They're the same growers, which made my transition so much easier because I was able to just keep all my relationships with the same growers.
That's good.
Yeah. So they're the same old folks.
Are you planning, do you go down to Florida now, or do you go down to Apopka, like all those different places, or have you stopped having to travel as much?
No, I travel the same amount, if not a little bit more. I went to the Tropical Plant Show in Tampa back in January. And it was a nice change because it was in Tampa, so it allowed us quicker access, easier access to the Apopka nurseries.
Okay. Why did they change that it was in Tampa now this time?
Because Fort Lauderdale was they're redoing the convention center.
I see.
So that's it was supposed to be a 2-year project, but I believe the show is going to be in Tampa again next January.
Amazing. Well, I'm grateful that you are able to share more of what you're seeing, because you get to see so much more before it hits stores, really, even though you're focused more on interior scaping now. And also just what folks are using in the interior scape, that's also, maybe you don't see the same trends as you would, every day when you go into a plant shop.
Right.
There's things that cycle back. I mean, even the ficus that you mentioned, Amstel King, I think that was probably popular 20 or 30 years ago, and then probably just...
Definitely. It definitely was. Yeah. They go in and out of popularity just like anything else, right?
Yeah.
Just, like skinny jeans, flare leg jeans.
Hey guys, so I just want to say thank you so much for watching the channel. And if you want to check out more of our outdoor gardening and homesteading and stuff like that, then go and check out our new channel called Flock Finger Lakes. We just started that about 1.5 years ago. I'm really grateful for everybody who's tuned into that as well to check in what we're doing here on the land. And I should also say that I haven't been traveling very much because I've been really focusing on landscaping and renovation here. It's really off to the races, especially during the nice weather. So I'll start to travel a bit more probably come fall. So you'll start to see more, travel episodes and travel vlogs and tours and things like that come through on the channel a little later in the season. So hopefully you'll tune into that when the time comes. But in the meantime, thank you, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Bye.